can go in and caucus, they can go in and talk, they can go in and do all this stuff. But as far as passing legislation that goes to the president for his signature on something, they're frozen. They can't do it without having the House Speaker of the House's signature on it. And so if the president tomorrow, God forbid, needed special legislation and a proclamation for war because Russia invaded England and needed our help, without a speaker, we couldn't do anything. Maybe that's a bad example, but that's the first one that comes to mind. I mean, so we're going to have to find a speaker is the bottom line. Right. Otherwise, the House stays frozen, or we keep Boehner for a while longer. He has agreed to hang around until we find a speaker. Because of that, if something, God forbid, happens, we have to, do something on an emergency situation.
Right. On the one hand, that's a good thing to have that availability. On the other hand, given what Boehner's done, I would much rather him just go. And I've always been of the mind that under normal operations, nothing extraneous or extreme like what you were pointing out, just under normal circumstances, the less the government is in session, the better off the people are.
Well, Tim, you got a very valid point there. But, if we do have an emergency, we're going to need somebody. And, I don't know that we want to, I don't know, maybe bringing Newt out of retirement would be such a bad idea. And believe it or not, somebody the other day, speaking of Newt, actually suggested, why don't we bring Newt out of retirement? Something else I've learned from all this, and you probably knew it as well, but anybody can be speaker. If you can go up, if Tim Tapp can go to Washington and convince 218 of these guys to make you speaker, guess what? You're the new Speaker of the House.
Right. Yeah, there is absolutely no constitutional restriction on being a member of the House to be the Speaker of the House. Yes, sir.
That's right, and that amazed me. But, so, Tim, I'll vote for you if you want to run up and see what you can do there. Try to.
I might have a harder time convincing some of those. Yeah. Getting some of the Washington types to agree with that might be a little tougher, but
it might be a little hard.
Yeah. As far as this is playing out, though, how long do you think it's really going to take for all the dust to settle and to get somebody in the position?
I think this coming week, I think the shock and awe is worn off over the last 5 or 6 days, whatever it's been now. And I think this coming week, you'll start seeing serious meetings. And I think within probably 10 days, we'll have somebody. 10 days to 2 weeks, we'll have somebody. And probably before then, they'll settle down and they'll get somebody, because Boehner wants to go home. He's ready to leave, and they know what they have to do. And I think you'll see somebody here pretty quick, to be honest with you. I don't see this dragging out very long. They've put up their moderate, went down in flames. They floated a couple of trial balloons on serious conservatives, hardcore conservatives, and they didn't fare so well either. And now you're seeing them sort of start getting serious about who to choose, and you're starting to see the coalitions form. And the groups, this group over here is pushing this person, this group's pushing this person. And you'll see them come together. I don't see this lasting very long at all, to be honest with you. A couple of weeks at the most.
Right. Well, I know on the off chance that something does happen, I know the need to have somebody in place is kind of a useful tool to use against the establishment for holding out and trying to get one of their get along to move along kind of agenda type people. So it's a good thing. I want to switch gears real quick before I let you go, though.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question. I know I didn't really give you any warning about this one, but I figure you'd probably have a lot to say about it anyway. I was curious, your impression of the Democratic debate.
Coronation for Hillary. I thought it was obscene. I thought there was there wasn't even any hiding it. You know, these people, for Bernie Sanders to come out and say what he said about her emails was reprehensible, because she, in fact, if they prove that those were on her server, which they can because they were, we're up to now, it's 400 emails. They've been through 20-something thousand of them, or 18,000, and they found 400 of them that were actually marked classified in some fashion, secret or top secret or nano crypto, whatever secret. Right. And for those to be on there in the first place is illegal. And the second place is she lied to Congress. So now we've got her on, technically, if you wanted to really push it, 400 and something instances of perjury against Congress, and where she was testifying. So for him to come out, here's a guy that's supposed to be a U.S. Senator, Looney Tune or not, the guy's supposed to be a U.S. Senator, and he's supposed to represent and defend the Constitution of the United States, which means defending our laws and our legal system. He should have never stood up and did that. So he did, and what that told me the minute he said that was that this is all a show. And none of the questions really struck me about that debate, Tim, was none of the questions were anywhere close to, they were all softball pitches. There was nothing in there with any meat on the bones to, hey guys, let's talk about our foreign policy. And it's the third thing that really struck me was they were all defending Obama's stance on everything, yet they're saying we've got all these poor people, we have this horrible economy and this economic servitude of the people, and 1/10 of 1% controls everything. Well, who's been in office for 7 years? Yeah, if it was this bad, why didn't your guy do anything about it? Everybody's afraid of Obama. Nobody's willing to speak up against the president. That was another thing that really struck me. They're in a quandary now because they have to run against the president's record, but they're having to do it without calling the president out for this bad record. And I find it kind of humorous, actually.
Yeah, the one thing that kept striking me more than anything is how when it came to anything that was foreign policy related, it was all started in Iraq. It all started in Iraq. In translation, it's still Bush's fault. There was absolutely no mention whatsoever of anything that Barack Hussein Allahu Akbar Obama may have done wrong, not even a hint of a question in it, which I guess that can be expected at this point. But I was a little surprised that none of the candidates tried to distance themselves from the failures of the administration. They all want to play like everything's sunshine and roses.
Yeah, that's right. Let's talk about that red line. What happened to this red line, which was the invitation when you didn't back up your red line for Russia and Iran to come in? Let's talk about this red line. Nobody will talk about it. Nobody will even mention it. It's you're right. It's comical at best and sad at the worst. You know, it really is. And it's like nobody. And poor old Webb, I kind of feel sorry for him because he stumbled into the wrong debate. He was more of a Republican than a Democrat.
As a former active duty Marine, somebody who understands what it means to serve, I think he is kind of a throwback to the Democratic Party pre-1965, back when there were legitimate patriots in both parties. And I think he's kind of trying to revitalize that. But bad news for him is that there's just nothing left of that at the national level. Now, you can still find some in certain states, maybe, You can find a lot of what they still refer to themselves as blue dog Democrats in certain southern states in particular. But there's not a lot of that at the national stage. They're too busy trying to protect a woman's right to abortion on demand and pretend like you're not human till you're born and all that wonderful stuff. So, yeah. And the other thing that really surprised me, too, was Anderson Cooper was real strict on the time for the other candidates except for Hillary and Bernie. They got basically all the time they wanted.
Yes, I noticed that as well. And you're right about Webb. He's what I would refer to as an old JFK Democrat. He's from the old school. And you remember Congressman Phil Graham, now retired Senator Phil Graham. He actually started as a Democrat congressman. And he was that ultra-conservative. You know, he was probably to the right of Webb, actually. But long story short, there's not too many left. They've all gone, and it really surprised me. The other thing that really, really struck me, and it caused fear in my heart, was when Anderson Cooper, or one of them, I think it was Cooper, that asked him, said, Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter?
Right.
And Webb was the only one that said All Lives Matter. Everybody else said Black Lives Matter. So in other words, if you're white or Hispanic or Italian or Greek, your life doesn't matter. That bothers me. It really did. For those guys that say that, here we are, U.S. senators and a Secretary of State, and a First Lady and all that, and nobody's life matters but black. That's sad.
Wait, I think Webb may be the only one who hasn't been publicly assaulted during a campaign event, though, by Black Lives Matter protesters. So I think that's more out of fear than anything, not even supplementing to the base, just afraid somebody's going to pop up and storm the stage again. But, I mean, the fact that question has to be asked is a very sad statement about where we are as a society right now. But I am kind of glad that he did ask it, because I think it's very telling to see these candidates with that answer. I think it says a lot about them, their personality, and who they're willing to fight for, which is nobody but themselves.
What are your thoughts, before you throw me off your show, what are your thoughts about Mr. Trump now? Because I have some news for you about Mr. Trump if you're interested in hearing it.
Well, I'm all interested in hearing anything involving the front runner of the campaign from either side. I think at this point it's pretty clear it would take something phenomenal for him to fall out of the first place slot. I think he probably is going to end up getting the nomination now. I'm still a Ted Cruz man myself. That's where I would love to go. But your point about how the left and the center perceive him is certainly a legitimate one. But, yeah, I mean, I don't see it playing out any other way at this point. I don't think the establishment is going to be able to derail him.
Well, briefly on that topic, Ted Cruz will probably be president, just not this round. I see Ted Cruz in about 8 years because, remember, we swung so far to the left. Now the pendulum's coming back to the right, but it's probably not going to go back as far to the right as it went to the left. It's going to have to come back. You know, we didn't get to Barack Obama in one election. The Democrats kept becoming more and more and more progressive through the years. You know, Carter was a liberal. Then we had Clinton and all his shenanigans. Then we had, you know, and down through the line. And so you had this progression toward this far left socialistic Marxism thing we have going on now, right? But Trump would get us back to the right side of the pendulum. And then if he does a good job, has a good wingman, and does a good job, you probably will see America go, yeah, this is where we need to stay, and we need a Ted Cruz, and he would probably win in 8 years, to be honest with you, 4 or 8 years, if he's not selected as a VP nominee, which he might very well be. But I was going to tell you that if you haven't seen it, there's now 172 groups or pages on Facebook that are pro-Trump.